want me to go?
Okay, great. I'm ready.
Okay.
Let me get my props.
Say next slide or whatever you want.
Alrighty, my name is Hope Taft, and I'm co-founder of the Little Mammy River Cleaners and the Little Mammy Watershed Network. And this year is the 50th anniversary of the Scenic Rivers Act, both in Ohio and in the federal government. And Ohio has a claim to fame in that it was the pioneer in Scenic River Acts. It was the first state in the nation to pass a law that would protect the rivers. And it was important because at that time in 1968, the river was beautiful, but it was filled with tires and trash and other concrete and other things. And it was not a good place for aquatic or wildlife animals to live, or for people to be close to or in, as a matter of fact. And so Ohio passed its law in February of 28th of 1960, that's the wrong date, 1968. And then the federal government passed their law in October of 1968. So this year is the 50th year. Next year, 2019 will be the 50th year of the Little Miami River being declared a scenic river. So we are very excited about that. The efforts were done by a person that you all might be familiar with, and that was Glenn Thompson, and we'll have his picture here in just a minute. I thought he was next. But we'll talk a little bit about the history of the Little Miami River. Did you all know that it was part of a tributary into the Taze River? And the Taze River was the ancient river that flowed from North Carolina into the Illinois and became the headwaters of the Mississippi River. And the glaciers came down about 10,000 years ago, and when they retreated, they covered up the Taze River, which gives this whole area its great drinking water, and also made the tributaries flow south instead of north. And that became, one of those tributaries became the Little Miami River. So it has an unusual history to it. It's also very unusual that it has 4 narrow points on it. Most rivers have one narrow point, such as Clifton Gorge, that was created when the water from the glaciers were melting and had to get through somewhere, and so they would make a trail, a path through the rock, but it would be a narrow path. And that happened 4 times on the Little Miami River, which is very unusual. So, isn't he cute? So what else do you want to know about the Little Miami River? It is a scenic river. It has a lot of history to it, as we just talked a little bit about. It was the trailway and transportation hub for the pioneers. It's the river that the troops went north on to defeat the Indians, the Native Americans. It was a river, at one time it had over 300 mills on it. And they would still be there today if we hadn't cut down all the trees and made the water flow unpredictable.
And 300 what?
Mills, like
really?
Yeah, like
wow.
For grinding grain, or for wood mills, or any kind of, like Clifton Mill,
right.
Washington Mill,
Mills.
yeah, Grinnell Mill,
Bears Mill.
Bears Mill. There's a lot of mills around here because at one time they were really buildings there too.
Really?
Yeah, they're not anymore. But that has a long, rich history to it. But when Glenn Thompson was editor of the Dayton Herald, he loved the river. He would love to canoe on it, and he had this dream that you could go from one end of the river to the other and just see trees and wildlife along its banks. And he really started promoting the effort to preserve the river, clean up the river, get all those tires out. And in 1967, he started the Little Miami Incorporated, which is now Little Miami Conservancy. and headquartered in Loveland. And they started cleaning up the river. And that gave them the idea that maybe there ought to be a law to protect the river. And he rallied people around and got the Ohio Scenic River Act passed, and was in Washington at the time when they were discussing the Federal Scenic River Act, and got the Little Miami River listed in that act to be one of the first rivers to be evaluated to see if it could become a federal scenic river. And he loved that river, and he also started the organization that is now the Ohio Environmental Council, which at this day started off being called the Ohio Conservation League. So we have a lot of local history to this river. And you can see this river is beautiful. If you've ever been on it, you know why it is classified as a scenic river. And here's some more pictures. It's used as recreation. About $9 million are come into the economy every year from people who use the river as a recreational spot. And I think that's me and Bob there in a canoe right outside our house. We're fortunate to live on the Little Miami River. That's why I think I'm so involved in it, and founded the Little Miami River Cleaners, because it was full of trash when we moved too.
That's nice now.
But here you can see that over 50% of the riverbanks are now preserved either by a governmental agency or by a conservation easement from some land trust, or by the Little Miami Conservancy. And it's beautiful any time of the year. In any time of the day. I really love it there's the sunsets, as you can see in this picture. It just glows beautifully. And even in the snow, it is pretty. It became very narrow about last week when we had all that cold weather. And if I had been brave enough, I probably could have walked across it, but I'm not quite that brave. But it is the home for a lot of wildlife. The river corridors are some of the longest stretches of land that is not developed now. So it's a real habitat for all kinds of birds and animals, as well as the aquatic fish and critters that live in the water. So it's very, very important that these river corridors are protected and preserved, because there's a lot of animals that depend on it, such as these turtles. And it's very, very important. And so when we moved to Dayton, we noticed that it was pretty trashy. And a neighbor and I started an organization called the Little Miami River Cleaners, and we organize a cleanup every spring. So if you or your members would like to join us, it's going to be on June the 9th, and I guarantee you that we will take out a lot of tires. We started in 2010, and since then we have taken out 10 tons of trash and over 700 tires. And we think that we have them all out, and next year they are more. So we would love your help. This is just some of the tires that we took out on a couple of hours in one day.
How do you salvage those?
We dig them up. We have invented, I should say, a special tire hook that can get down there and help you get the tires that are embedded in the sand out, so you can get into the rim and help pull them up, and then scrape out the sand that has accumulated inside. And if you're strong enough, get a rope around it and help you pull it out. And then we put it on the canoe, and then we take it to shore.
Where do they recycle it?
The Greene County Parks and Trails is very nice. They come out and pick up all of our trash, and they take it to the recycling center in Greene County, and they recycle the tires for us for free. So it's really
Those-
against the law to throw a tire in
It
the
is
river?
against the law to throw a tire in the river. But
Those
Somebody
buried
sees you,
tires.
you could be arrested for it.
it's right, but I think they go off the bridge in the middle of the night. I'm not sure. I haven't seen anyone do it, but
If you have to dig for them, I would think that those would have been from previous years way back.
oh, they are. They are. In the 1950s, it was the thing to use tires and old cars and concrete as the riprap along the edges of the river so that it would not erode. There are still some upside down cars along this river we would love to get out, but there's no way we can do it because they've been there so long and they're so deep that there's just no way we can do it. And there is one place where someone made a low water dam out of tires across the river. And so those keep coming up to us. And then there's Kilcare car racetrack up the river. And they have a lot of tires that they don't need anymore. So we're always finding tires. And the more tires we took out, the more plastic and trash that we took out. Flip-flops, we've taken appliances, we've taken everything you can imagine out of the river. We realized that those were things that we could see that was impacting the river, but there were a lot of things going into the river that we couldn't see that were probably equally dangerous, if not more dangerous. And so we started the Little Miami Watershed Network to focus on the watershed as a whole and the pollutants that come off the land to go into the river. Because most of us use that river and the aquifer for our drinking water. And the less we have to treat it, the better off we are. And so we've started a program called the sign program, where we like to put up these kind of signs, and the Kettering Optimist Club has helped us a lot, and we have put in a lot in the Kettering area. If you go up and down the streets in Kettering and Beaver Creek, you might see some of these signs. The Little Miami Watershed starts at Sawyer Road. So that kind of surprised me when I found that out, because that doesn't seem so close to the river itself. But the tributaries, the Little Sugar Creek and the Beaver Creek tributaries all flow into the Little Miami. And so what happens in Beaver Creek and Kettering affects the quality of the river. And there is research that shows when 10% of the surface of the area of the watershed is in hard surfaces, i.e. concrete or roofs or roads or even soccer fields, the quality of the water reduces. And in the Kettering and Beaver Creek area, it's a lot higher than 10%. It's up almost to 30% because they're so built up. So we have to be very careful about what goes into the drainage system in those areas. And so we have signs like this to help you realize that you need to protect the water. And then, it's not next, but it'll be coming up, we have some medallions that we put on the drains that remind you that only water goes down the drain. You don't put leaves down there, you don't put dog poop down there, you don't put oil and gasoline down there, you don't put soap from your car down there. Only water goes down there. Because those drains go into culverts, into pipes that form like an underground river with nothing to slow it down. They go right into the stream, which leads right into the Little Miami River. And so it's important that we help to educate people that only water goes down those drains. But we have a lot of fun cleaning up, and we need to think about the future and what part we're going to play in order to protect the river for future generations. And so we are on a rampage this year, because it is the 50th anniversary of the Scenic Rivers Act, to talk to 50 different groups. And so I think you are the perfect group for me to talk to, and for you to invite to come and talk to your group to give you a longer, more in-depth presentation than I've given you today. Today I just kind of went over the top because I knew I was one of 3 speakers, and I knew what you all would not want to hear the same thing twice. So you invite me to your club. We have a speakers bureau. If I cannot come, we'll get another speaker to come, and we'll give you an in-depth talk on the Little Miami River, why it's important to save it, and how you can help with it. On one of the things you might like to know about, on September the 15th, we're going to have the first ever Little Miami River Trailblazer race. It's going to be for